Hi, guys. Welcome to Comprehension Day 4. Coming to the very end, we're going to go over the What Will I Do in Emergency paired selection that should be assigned in Pearson. Realize it is real short, so we should be short and quick today. If you haven't read it yet, don't stop. Just keep listening with me, and then afterwards go back and walk through it because it's only one page long, okay? How to text is your paired selection. What will I do in an emergency? Here it is and how it looks. And a how-to text is a lot different than our story, Red Kayak, isn't it? It's definitely even looks different. Do you see all the points and the numbers? That lets us know that we're looking at a different kind of writing today. How-to texts tell us how to do something. And in this case, it's telling us how the correct way we need to act in an emergency where we need to dial 911. Have you ever thought about what you would do in an emergency? In most places in the United States, dialing 911 on a phone connects you to people trained to help in an emergency. When is it the right time to dial 911? Because it's never a joke, is it? Only call 911 when there is a real, look at that, capital letters, real need for an emergency. There is a fire and you need firefighters. There is a crime and you need the police. Or someone is seriously injured or ill and you need an ambulance and an emergency medical technician. Before dialing 911, you need to know the exact location of the emergency. You've got to know where you are. Otherwise, the police can't come to you, right? If you are not at home, look for street names, big signs, and the names on buildings. I would say look for businesses. Like, I know where the Family Dollar is in Moundville. So if I say I'm next to the Family Dollar in Moundville, they'll know exactly where I am. This information will help responders get to the location. All right, so got to know where you are. Okay, you know what kind of help you need and where the emergency is. Here are the steps you need to do as you walk. Look how lovely numbered they are. We call that sequence order in writing, don't we? When things are in steps that you follow. Dial 911. Stay on the phone until the dispatcher comes on the line. When the dispatcher answers, calmly and clearly tell what the emergency is and what kind of help you need. Give the location of the emergency. The dispatcher will ask for your name and address, and sometimes your phone number too, so he or she can call you back if you get disconnected. Listen to and answer each of the dispatcher's questions. And last step, end the call only when the dispatcher says it's okay to hang up. Now, I read that like a paragraph, didn't I? Let's go back and read through it again with the steps added this time. Step 1, dial 911. Stay on the phone until the dispatcher comes online. Step 2, when the dispatcher answers, calmly and clearly tell what the emergency is and what type of help you need. Step 3, give the location of the emergency. Step 4, the dispatcher will ask you for your name and address and sometimes your phone number too, so he or she can call you back if you get disconnected. Step 5, listen to and answer each of the dispatcher's questions. Step 6, end the call only when the dispatcher says it's okay to hang up. Was it easier to understand the first time or the second time we read it? I'd like to think with the steps, I can go down like a list of things I need to make sure that I'm doing. You have done your best and help will be on the way. Think it through and practice what you need to do. Then you'll be ready to meet the challenge. So some questions to think about. Why would the author write an article like this? Why write what to do in an emergency? A how-to text. So you know what to do. It's genius. They want us to be ready. And even we can go back and take a look at the context clues. Take a look at that very last sentence at the bottom. If I had to prove why I think the author wrote this, I could say my proof, my evidence from the story is you will think it through and practice what you need to do, and you'll be ready to meet the challenge. The author wrote this article because he wants you and I to be ready to meet the challenge when we have to call 911. And we hate to think about having to do it, but it's kind of like drills at school, the fire drill and the tornado drill. I never want a tornado to come through, and I never want there to be a fire. But if there is a fire and there is a tornado, I want to be ready so that nobody gets hurt. How to text prepare you for things like that, like the drills prepare us, which is why we can never play with drills, right? We got to be serious all the time with that. If the article were to continue, what do you think the author might include as an additional step to take when facing an emergency? So if our steps that we read through, step 6 says end the call only when the dispatcher says it's okay to hang up. So if the dispatcher said, okay, you can go ahead and hang up now, the help is on the way, what would be another step we could add? Could we say, make sure you remain where you are until the emergency services arrive? There we go. Stay in place until you see the emergency services might be step 7. I'd like us to compare and contrast our 2 stories from this week. So we're going to compare and contrast Red Kayak to What Will I Do in an Emergency? And to do that, I'm going to move us over here. Oh, earthquake. Just kidding. Move us over here to where I've set up a Venn diagram for What Will I Do in an Emergency and Red Kayak. And so I want us to compare how Red Kayak is different than What Will I Do in an Emergency. How What Will I Do in an Emergency is different than Red Kayak. And of course, here in the center, we're going to do both. So can you think, let's start with Red Kayak. Can you think of anything that makes Red Kayak different from What Will I Do in an Emergency? Well, definitely, Red Kayak is a fiction story. It's got characters. It's got the setting. It's got plot events. It's got rising action and climax, falling action and resolution. So Red Kayak is definitely different than Emergency. What Will I Do in an Emergency? Because it's fiction. It's not real. It never was, unfortunately, even though Brady is so cool. Red Kayak was written in first-person point of view. That means the author used I did this and I did that, like we were Brady, right? Emergency wasn't written like that. That was you need to do this, you need to do that. It's definitely a different point of view. And last but not least, I'm going to use a teacher word. Red Kayak was written like a story. And in teacher talk, we call that a narrative. I'm going to put story. It's written like a story to get us into it and make us think that Brady is a real person. And so it's much different than a how-to text, isn't it? Which isn't written like a story. It's written in steps. Let's take a look at Emergency then, right? Well, if Red Kayak was fiction, that means Emergency is nonfiction. Definitely nonfiction. No characters or plot events here. Emergency was written in a third person point of view, using the word you. And last, it was written not as a story, but to give us, I like that I word, gives information. It's steps. And the steps prove that it was information, right? Because it's steps it wants us to take up and follow. All right, both. What do Red Kayak and What Will I Do in an Emergency have in common? They're definitely types of texts written for specific purposes, to tell a story, to give information. They might be doing different things, but they're still written by an author for the purpose of being read. They certainly are talking about similar topics. They're both in some wibbly way talking about emergencies, right? or being in an emergency. And then they're definitely giving us something to think about, both of them. I know reading Red Kayak and What Will I Do in an Emergency made me think about, what if I was really in it, what would I do? So they give us something to think about. They give us thoughts. All right. Good job, guys. That means if we're here on day 4 talking about our paired selection, of course, you've got testing coming up. And so I'm going to wish you luck there. Make sure that you read back through your story. You read back through your paired selection. They're there to help you get ready for your test and do your very best tomorrow when you log in to Pearson Realize. Bye for now.